Am's downfall would one day shock an entire nation, but in her early 20s, nobody could have predicted she had a vicious streak hidden behind her demure smile. Growing up in a small town in Thailand, she was well liked for her easygoing personality. No one suspected that underneath her pleasant exterior, a furious ambition and a destructive addiction were brewing, an addiction that would eventually lead her to kill and steal from her own friends. In 2015, Am was 26 years old and already deeply in love with online gambling. She'd first stumbled across these virtual casinos through an ad on her phone, a flashing banner promising instant wins, huge jackpots, and life-changing earnings. Intrigued, she signed up. Initially, she played with trivial amounts, maybe a few dollars here and there, just enough to feel a thrill whenever she'd see her balance tick upward. Yet the bright, mesmerizing visuals and the near-constant possibility of a big score quickly pulled her in deeper. She became enthralled by an endless parade of digital slot machines, card tables, and dice games, each one more enticing than the last. As weeks turned into months, her bets skyrocketed from the occasional small gamble to hundreds, and soon thousands, of dollars at a time. It happened in increments. She would lose a small sum, double her next wager hoping to recoup losses, lose again, and keep chasing. By the end of 2015, her entire personal savings were gone. Debts were racking up, and she was in trouble. But Am was skilled at hiding her problem. She had no official job, she hopped between menial gigs, unbothered by the lack of stability yet. She always spoke about potential business ventures or side hustles. When people asked why she was short on cash, she'd offer a barrage of plausible excuses. A family member's medical bills, tuition for her younger sibling, an unexpected household crisis. Over and over, sympathetic friends helped by loaning her money, trusting that she was a fundamentally honest person. Eventually, in early 2015, she found herself cornered. She had borrowed from nearly everyone she knew. Collectors had begun calling her phone, leaving increasingly threatening messages. With no legitimate income, she was nearing a point of no return. Public humiliation, potential lawsuits, maybe even jail for unpaid debts. That's when she approached her longtime friend, someone she'd known since they were kids in school. Friend 1. Loaned amount, 15,000 USD. Relationship to Am. Childhood friend, someone who'd always admired Am's optimism and believed in her business plans. Over a cup of tea, the friend listened compassionately as Am wept about her struggles. "I just need a little support," Am pleaded. "I'm so close to getting my new store off the ground. As soon as I start earning, I'll pay you back right away." The friend was touched by her tears. A day later, that 15,000 USD transfer was deposited into Am's account, intended to bail her out of her mounting bills and kickstart her store. But as soon as the money cleared, Am was back in her favorite casino app, doubling, tripling, quadrupling her bets, hoping for one massive windfall that could solve all her problems. Instead, she lost every dime in a matter of days. A few weeks later, friend 1 gently asked about repayment. "How's your shop going, Am? The money really helped, right? I'd love to see your progress." That simple question made Am panic. Her insides twisted with guilt and dread. She had no business, no shop, nothing to show for the money. She realized that if she told the truth, she'd lose not just her reputation, but also a dear friend's trust. She couldn't bear the thought of facing that shame. That was the moment the idea of murder first slithered into her mind. It was unthinkable, horrifying, yet it came with a dark, undeniable logic. If the friend wasn't there to demand repayment, the debt would effectively vanish. Em pushed the thought aside at first, telling herself she was just having a moment of desperation. But as the pressure mounted and her phone kept buzzing with even more collectors, her mind circled back. No friend equals no debt. She began researching poison-san activity she never would have considered before. Late at night, behind locked doors, she read about various lethal substances, how they could be administered, how easily they might be traced. That's when she discovered cyanide. She learned that if authorities didn't suspect foul play, they often didn't test for it. She also read that cyanide poisoning could be confused with heart failure or a seizure unless experts ran a thorough examination. Her friend, presumably healthy, had no known health conditions that would raise immediate red flags. It was the perfect method, she thought. No one would suspect murder if the victim simply collapsed at home. Within a week, Em found an illicit supplier online willing to ship her a tiny package of cyanide powder in exchange for a discreet payment. The parcel arrived one unremarkable afternoon. Em opened it carefully, heart hammering in her chest. Part of her screamed back out now, but she felt trapped. She had a looming debt, and this seemed like her only escape. She texted friend one, "Come over, I have the money for you. Let's talk about how my shop is going. I'd love your feedback." The friend responded with excitement, relieved to hear that repayment was imminent. When the friend arrived at Am's small apartment, everything looked normal. They chatted about trivial things, and Am prepared a tray with cold drinks. Unbeknownst to friend one, Am had stirred a precise dose of cyanide into one of the glasses. The friend sipped slowly, listening to Am's excuses about why the money wasn't all there yet, and pretended to rummage for an envelope, stalling. Within minutes, her friend's face tightened in confusion, hand going to her throat. Friend one in a voice choking, "Am, something feels off. I feel hot, dizzy." Fear flashed in Am's eyes as she realized there was no turning back now. The friend gasped, collapsed, and spasmed on the floor, eyes rolling back. It happened in less than 5 minutes. Tears ran down, Am's cheeks perhaps a genuine reaction, or maybe terror at what she'd just done. But once the friend stopped moving, she forced herself into a cold, practical calm. She found the friend's purse, took $2,000 in cash, discovered a gold necklace worth another $1,500, and pocketed them. The borrowed $15,000 USD was now effectively forgiven by default no-living lender to chase her. She dragged the body slightly to appear as if her friend had simply collapsed near the couch, then fled the apartment. When authorities arrived, they noted no signs of struggle or intrusion. The official cause of death would later be listed as natural causes, or possibly a catastrophic heart event. No autopsy was performed. No suspicion. Am had gotten away with murder. In the aftermath, she was horrified by her own actions, but also strangely exhilarated. She told herself it was a necessary evil, the only way to salvage her life from the jaws of debt collectors. She might have quit gambling right then, haunted by guilt, but the sudden relief from a $15,000 USD debt, plus the extra items she stole, reignited her self-destructive spark. Before long, she was back on the online casinos, believing that this fresh start could lead to a big break if only she got lucky once. For a few months, nothing dramatic happened. She kept gambling at high stakes, sometimes winning modest amounts, more often losing. She moved to another part of town to distance herself from the scene of her crime. No one questioned her friend's death. In fact, the friend's family was convinced it was a fatal, unforeseen illness. Em even attended the funeral service, offering sobs of grief and condolences. During this period of relative calm, she met a local police officer named Woon. He was in his early 30s, a rising star in the precinct known for his polite demeanor and dedication to community work. They crossed paths at a cafe near the station. Am was on her phone, spinning digital reels, when Woon struck up a conversation. She quickly put on her warm, sweet persona. He found her charming and a bit shy, and he admired her apparent resilience. Spoke vaguely about family troubles without revealing any true details. Within weeks, they were dating. The relationship progressed rapidly, partly because Am saw in Woon the stability she desperately lacked, and partly because it felt like a fresh slate, someone who knew nothing about her horrifying secret. For his part, Woon was enamored with the gentle version of Am she presented to him. Woon noted with a light-hearted curiosity how Am was never far from her phone, hinting at a puzzle he couldn't quite put his finger on. In response, Am offered a hesitant laugh, and brushed it off as nothing more than mere trivial distractions. She never let him see her phone screen up close. In half a year, they were married. Pictures from the wedding show a radiant couple, Am in a shimmering white gown, Woon in a crisp police dress uniform. Guests would recall how the two seemed so in love, so devoted. No one suspected that Am's secret gambling addiction and capacity for murder were simmering just beneath her veil of normalcy. Eventually, the wedding gifts and well wishes dried up. Life settled into a routine. Woon worked, sometimes long shifts. Am stayed home or wandered around, her phone never far from her reach. Without a stable source of income, Her gambling addiction soon consumed what was left of her meager savings. She tried to curb her habit, but every loss made her bet more aggressively, in hopes of a miraculous comeback. By 2020, they were in debt once again. Only this time, Am had discovered a surefire way, at least in her twisted mind, to avoid responsibility for any money she owed. If the lender couldn't demand repayment, the debt disappeared. This lethal logic was about to resurface in a way that would transform her from a one-time killer into a serial murderer, tearing apart the lives of everyone around her. By mid-2020, Am's desperate spiral deepened. With her gambling losses mounting anew and creditors breathing down her neck, she resorted to the only solution she'd ever dared, eliminating the source of every unwelcome debt. The vicious cycle was now in full swing, and her list of victims grew longer by the day. Each murder, meticulously planned and coldly executed, followed a similar pattern target, a trusted friend who'd lent her money, extract not only the loan but also additional valuables, and then vanish into the night before anyone could connect the dots. Friend 2. The college acquaintance. Am's first repeat victim in this new wave was a former college acquaintance known for her unwavering faith in Am's business ventures. Loan amount, $12,000 USD. Additional valuables stolen. Approximately $1,000 USD in cash from her purse, and a gold bracelet valued at $2,000 USD. One afternoon, Am invited friend 2 over for what she described as an update on her big idea. Over a light lunch at Am's modest apartment, the conversation began pleasantly enough. Friend 2, with a warm smile as she handed over her phone, explained that a generous sum of $12,000 USD had just been transferred, driven by her strong belief in Am's vision and anticipation of a new beginning. In response, Am expressed sincere gratitude, albeit in a tone that betrayed a hint of obligation, assuring her that circumstances would soon improve and that the envisioned transformation was on the horizon. After the meal, as the friend sipped a freshly squeezed glass of iced tea that Am had prepared, she suddenly paused mid-sip. A pained grimace replaced her smile. Friend 2. Am, I don't feel right. My throat, it's like something's burning. Before any alarm could be raised, the friend clutched her neck and slumped forward. In the ensuing moments of chaos and feigned concern, Am calmly retrieved her belongings. The stolen assets, a paltry $1,000 USD in loose cash, and a shimmering bracelet worth around $2,000 USD, were discreetly pocketed. With the $12,000 USD loan effectively nullified by her friend's untimely death, Am's crime netted her nearly $15,000 USD extra. Friend 3. The neighborly confidante. Next in line was a neighbor who had always regarded Am as almost a younger sister. Trust was easy between them, and it was precisely that trust Am exploited. Loan amount, $11,000 USD. Additional valuables stolen, roughly $500 USD in cash, and a delicate ring appraised at about $1,500 USD. During a quiet, rainy afternoon, Am arranged a casual tea party, citing an excuse to catch up on old times. As the two sat in Am's sunny living room, the neighbor commented on Am's familiar penchant for detail, especially the unique blend of tea leaves she used. Friend 3, with a gentle smile, remarked that Am had a unique way of brightening even the gloomiest days, and mentioned that a recent transfer had been made to help launch her new project, a gesture born of genuine belief in her fresh start. In turn, Am offered a quiet nod of gratitude, her expression composed as she assured him that she would turn this opportunity into success. Unbeknownst to her, Am's tea was laced with cyanide dose measured precisely to ensure a swift collapse. Mid-conversation, the neighbor's words slurred into silence as she crumpled in her chair. In the blink of an eye, Am moved to secure what she could find: an open purse containing approximately $500 USD in small bills and a cherished ring estimated at $1,500 USD. With the $11,000 USD loan erased by death, the neighbor's loss translated into a total windfall of around $13,000 USD for Am. Friend 4. The former coworker. Am's pattern was unmistakable. Her next target was a former coworker who once supported her in times of financial distress. Loan amount, $10,000 USD. Additional valuables, stolen. An ornate necklace worth around $2,500 USD and about 1,000 USD in cash hidden in her handbag. On a mild evening in a quiet cafe, Em met friend 4 under the pretext of discussing a new freelance opportunity. The coworker, eager and trusting, congratulated Em on her latest venture and mentioned that she'd just wired her 10,000 USD as an investment in Em's future. Friend 4, brimming with warmth and optimism, expressed his full confidence in Em's potential and made it clear that the sum he provided was not merely a gesture of kindness, but also an investment in a promising future. In turn, Em responded with heartfelt gratitude and a gentle assurance that the support would soon yield significant returns. After ordering a shared dessert and another round of drinks, Em stealthily administered a lethal dose of cyanide into a freshly made smoothie. Within minutes, friend 4's laughter turned to choking gasps. As her face went slack, Em hesitated only long enough to extract an embroidered purse from the coworker's bag. Inside, she found roughly 1,000 USD in cash and an ornate necklace appraised at 2,500 USD. With the coworker's loan effectively forgiven through her death, Em's scheme from this murder contributed a further combined gain of roughly 13,500 USD. By the end of this cycle in 2021, Em had successively eliminated 3 people who collectively had lent her around 33,000 USD. On top of that, through theft, she amassed additional valuables, valued at nearly 40,000 USD. Each murder not only cleared a debt but augmented her resources for feeding her gambling addiction. The cold precision of her actions allowed her to accumulate funds temporarily. She would then gamble away nearly every cent, only to start the cycle anew when fresh debts were incurred. Yet, as her body count increased, so did whispers in her community. Locals noted the coincidental timing of her investment discussions with unexpected deaths. Still, with each new tragedy attributed to mysterious heart failures or sudden allergic reactions, official suspicion waned. Em's meticulous planning and the sporadic, varied methods of cyanide delivery made it nearly impossible for forensic experts to pin the crimes on her. In quiet moments after each killing, when the adrenaline faded, Em would stare blankly at her phone that buzzed ceaselessly with notifications of lost bets and missed wins and silently calculate the totals. With every victim, her ledger of stolen wealth grew. Even as she risked everything, a perverse thrill coursed through her veins, and the total earnings from these heinous acts were rapidly climbing toward the $250,000 mark when combined with earlier gains. The body count kept climbing, as Em's lethal cycle grew more brazen and her methods more varied. In the months following her initial spree, the careful planning of each killing melded with a mounting desperation. Her finances once again fell into disarray from her incessant gambling, and every new debt was met with a calculated, deadly solution. In this phase, her methods became increasingly callous, and the number of victims and the sum she extorted swelled alarmingly. Friend 5, the high school confidant. Em's next target was a dear friend from high school, someone who'd trusted her implicitly. This friend had recently lent Em a hefty sum, 15,000 USD to help with an emergency business investment. Loan amount, 15,000 USD. Additional valuables, stolen, approximately 1,500 USD in cash, plus a designer handbag valued at 2,500 USD. On a late afternoon when the school reunion was several days away, Em invited friend 5 over for a catch-up over iced coffee at a trendy cafe. Their conversation began with laughter and shared memories, the familiar warmth masking the deadly intentions simmering underneath. Friend 5 greeted Em with a bright expression, mentioning that a generous sum had been sent to help her get back on track, and subtly reminding her of an earlier commitment. Em returned a carefully practiced smile and offered a quiet assurance that fortune was just around the corner, and everything would ultimately fall into place. As they clinked their glasses in what should have been a friendly toast, Em discreetly stirred a measured dose of cyanide into her friend's drink. Within moments, friend 5's cheerful chatter faded into choking coughs. Amid the ensuing panic and disbelief from nearby patrons, Em calmly excused herself. Later, she returned alone to retrieve from her friend's bag roughly 1,500 USD in loose cash and a high-end designer handbag she knew would fetch at least 2,500 USD. With the 15,000 USD debt erased by death and additional valuables on hand, Her illicit gains from this encounter tallied a grand total of nearly 19,000 USD. Friend 6, the close neighbor. Not long after, Am targeted another neighbor, this time someone she had treated like a sister. Trust was implicit, and the neighbor had lent her 13,000 USD under the guise of familial support during tough times. Loan amount, 13,000 USD. Additional valuables stolen. A jeweled brooch valued at 2,000 USD and about 1,000 USD in spare cash. On a drizzly afternoon, while the sky wept over the crowded local market, Em invited friend 6 to her modest home. They talked over a shared bowl of rice porridge, a meal that reminded them of childhood comfort. As the neighbor complimented Am's culinary skills, the friendly mood was shattered in an instant when the neighbor suddenly slumped forward, eyes wide with terror. Friend 6's voice was barely a whisper as he indicated uncertainty about the sudden change, while Am responded softly, as if downplaying a minor mishap. Within moments, the neighbor was unresponsive. Am, with chilling efficiency, pocketed the jeweled brooch worth at least 2,000 USD and discovered a small envelope containing about 1,000 USD. With the original 13,000 USD loan nullified by her calculated murder, this incident alone netted her nearly 16,000 USD in value. Friend 7, the business partner. Am's next victim was a former business partner who had trusted her implicitly in a joint venture. Lured into a meeting at an upscale restaurant, Friend 7 had lent her 14,000 USD to kickstart what was supposed to be a lucrative startup. Loan amount, 14,000 USD. Additional valuables stolen. An expensive wristwatch priced at 3,000 USD and around 1,000 USD in cash hidden away. At a private booth in the restaurant, the atmosphere was intimate and subdued. Friend 7 raved about the promising future of their enterprise, and even casually mentioned that he had arranged to lend her additional funds. Am, with rehearsed sympathy and feigned excitement, suggested a celebratory toast. While the clink of glasses momentarily filled the air, she had already mixed a lethal dose of cyanide into the celebratory cocktail. Friend 7 lifted his glass in a gesture of hopeful renewal, while Am returned the sentiment with a gentle smile that conveyed her belief in prosperity and the enduring power of mutual reliance. Before long, Friend 7's cheers turned to strangled gasps as he slumped forward. Amid the confusion, Am swiftly acquired the partner's wallet, which yielded roughly 1,000 USD in cash, and noticed a high-end wristwatch worth nearly 3,000 USD on his wrist. With the 14,000 USD loan rendered moot by his sudden death, this murder added another 18,000 USD in stolen wealth to her dark ledger. By the close of 2021, Am's meticulously compiled account now recorded losses cleared by death that amounted to tens of thousands of dollars. When summed together with the earlier cycles, her stolen gains from these murders alone now exceeded 80,000 USD. And these were only the direct gains from loans and valuables. Each murder also ensured that the creditors were no longer able to demand repayment. Meanwhile, Am continued to gamble away almost every cent she acquired, each loss reigniting the vicious need for another score, another killing. Her once discreet actions began to attract murmurs in the community. Neighbors exchanged hushed suspicions over market stalls. Some local shopkeepers noted that several of Am's acquaintances had died under suspicious circumstances, and that each time, she seemed to be uniquely unaffected and oddly affluent for a while. Yet, without any overt evidence and with causes of death quickly categorized as cardiac arrest or severe food poisoning, the pattern remained hidden in plain sight. For Am, every new murder was a calculated risk that fed her addiction as much as it fed her stolen coffers. Every victim she eliminated not only erased a debt but also provided her with additional funds she would gamble until her balance again plummeted to zero. The vicious cycle spun on, and with each murder, she flirted more dangerously with a life where morality was extinguished, replaced instead by cold calculation and greed. As the cycle of murders escalated, the community's whispers began to grow louder, but none carried the weight of hard proof. In the quiet hours of a humid evening in late 2021, Officer Woona, Am's husband, finally stumbled upon a clue that shattered the fragile normalcy of their married life. Late one night, while preparing for his early morning shift, Woon noticed an unfamiliar, sealed box tucked away in the back of their shared closet. Curious and unsettled, he carefully pried the box open. Inside were several small, unmarked packets accompanied by a receipt from an obscure online vendora vendor that specialized in chemicals. His stomach churned when he recognized the label, Cyanide, for laboratory use only. Woon, clearly troubled, muttered under his breath in quiet disbelief, puzzling over how such an item could have found its way into their home. Unable to shake the growing dread, Woon began combing through Am's personal items and phone records. In a series of frantic late-night investigations, he discovered text messages and online transactions that painted a horrifying pictura trail of poison orders placed discreetly over the past 18 months. His heart pounded as he recalled the unexplained deaths and the strangely timed investment discussions that preceded them. In a moment of bitter clarity, he pieced together the dark ledger Am had been maintaining in secret. Friend One's death had nullified a 15,000 USD loan, with an extra 3,500 USD in personal valuables stolen. Friend Two's murder had erased 12,000 USD and netted an additional 3,000 USD in accessories. Friend 3, Friend 4, and others all together. Her calculated killings had robbed victims of a cumulative sum well over 200,000 USD. Every number, every message, confirmed his worst suspicions. Am was orchestrating a serial killing spree solely to erase debts and fuel her insatiable gambling habit. One rainy night, Woon confronted Am. The tension in their dimly lit living room was palpable, punctuated by the rhythmic drumming of rain on the roof. He held the incriminating box in his hand as if it were an alibi and a death warrant all at once. Woon's tone dropped to a low, menacing murmur as he referenced the suspicious packets he had discovered, items unmistakably linked to a lethal substance. He demanded an explanation for their presence. In response, Am maintained an unnervingly calm demeanor, dismissing his concern as an intrusion into matters he clearly did not fully grasp. She suggested that what he had found was nothing more than a trivial chemical sample. Undeterred, Woon's irritation grew, and he emphasized that his records and message logs left little room for ambiguity, pressing for the full extent of her actions. Without allowing him further inquiry, Am responded with a cool, measured justification. She implied that her actions were a necessary response to obligations imposed by those who had extended their trust and funds to her measures taken to reclaim what was owed, and then some. Her tone was casual, unnervingly detached, as if discussing a minor business loss rather than the cold-blooded murder of 14 trusted friends. Woon's face contorted in a mix of revulsion, disbelief, and something akin to a twisted fascination. Woon's voice wavered as he expressed a deep concern, hinting that her actions resulted not only in the loss of lives, but also in stripping away valuable resources, leaving behind vast sums unaccounted for. In response, Am inclined forward with a calculating gleam in her eyes and remarked, in a tone of detached clarity, that every loss in life simultaneously erased her liabilities and provided a fresh reservoir of funds for her next endeavor. In her view, it was as if the deficits incurred by others seamlessly transformed into her personal profit. In that charged moment, as the rain hammered down relentlessly on the roof, Woon felt a crushing wave of conflict. His duty as a policeman warred with the lure of an operation that, while monstrous, was undeniably profitable. The stolen sums were staggering, valued at over 200,000 USD. In total stolen asset sand, the promise of a life free of debt shone disturbingly bright before him. After a long, painful silence, Woon's voice softened, almost reluctantly, as he contemplated their future. Woon's tone carried a heavy resignation, as he implied that any action to expose her would ultimately bring ruin upon them both, not only jeopardizing his own future, but also threatening the stability of their entire family. In response, Am's demeanor remained unnervingly composed, as if she had long anticipated his unspoken understanding. She suggested, with a subtle assurance, that by working together they could manipulate the situation to their advantage and leave no trace of their wrongdoing. In her quiet yet persuasive manner, she made it clear that their interests were inseparable, for her ambitions and his need for security were, in her view, two sides of the same coin. The weight of the decision settled between them like a shroud. Officer Woon, bound by a mixture of greed, fear, and a perverse sense of loyalty, chose to join her. Together, they redefined the rules. He would use his position to divert suspicions, tamper with evidence, and smooth over any loose ends. In return, Am promised to share a cut of her murderous, ill-gotten gain sand to protect him from his own rising guilt. Thus, a sinister alliance was forged. Woon began covertly sheltering Am's activities. When investigations in their precinct raised questions about a series of tragic deaths, he interjected plausible explanations and ensured that autopsies were cursory at best. His intervention allowed Am's spree to continue for a time, at least as each new murder conveniently wiped away the debt of a trusting friend. Behind closed doors, the couple would review their accounts late into the night. Woon would detail the sums: 15,000 USD, 12,000 USD, 11,000 USD, and so on. Am, with measured pride, recounted how each victim had not only failed to repay their loans but had also been relieved of valuables that sometimes carried a premium well over 2,500 to 3,000 USD. The totals climbed inexorably, and with each addition, their complicity deepened. In a low murmur that barely carried above a whisper, Woon remarked that their illicit accumulation had already exceeded 200,000 USD and hinted that it was destined to climb even higher. In response, Am's expression remained unnervingly impassive as she insinuated that the true extent of their endeavor was only beginning to unfold. In the depths of that night, the line between predator and protector blurred irreversibly. Woon, the devoted police officer, had become a guardian of a secret too dark to fathom a secret. That the dark spiral finally reached its breaking point. By mid-2023, whispers in the community had evolved into open suspicion. One victim's desperate family member, unwilling to accept the official story of a mysterious heart failure, pushed relentlessly for a full autopsy. That fateful investigation would become the spark that ignited the collapse of Am's deadly empire. It was a chilly morning when Koi's mother, heartbroken and defiant, insisted on a complete forensic examination of her daughter's sudden collapse at a riverside pier. Koi, a new friend of Am who had joined her on a supposed Buddhist ritual for good karma, had been given a drink mixed by Am. Unlike the previous accidental deaths, this time the autopsy revealed unmistakable traces of cyanide. The forensic report was damning. Toxic levels of cyanide were found in Koi's system that could not be explained by natural causes. The report explicitly noted that no known medical condition could account for such rapid poisoning. When investigators connected the dots with the timing of Koi's presence with Am on security footage from the pier, the case quickly escalated into a full-blown criminal investigation. The surveillance captured clear images of Am and Koi walking side by side at the riverside, a rare moment of documented association among the scattered, unexplained deaths. Detectives from multiple jurisdictions had spent long, sleepless nights combing through piles of evidence gathered from a maze of unsolved deaths. In a cluttered operations room filled with scattered case files, maps marked with red ink, and murmurings of tension among the team, they began to see a disturbing connection emerge. Nearly 14 trusted friends of Amich, having provided loans in the range of 10,000 to over 20,000 USD, met sudden suspicious ends. The investigators soon realized that every victim had a similar story. A substantial sum of money was borrowed, and shortly afterward, the lender would vanish without a trace of repayment, leaving behind a void filled with stolen valuables. In effect, Am's cold calculation had annulled debts totaling well over 200,000 USD, while scooping up designer handbags, gold jewelry, wristwatches, and bundles of cash hidden in purse items, seized immediately as the victims collapsed. A breakthrough came when digital traces revealed several orders of cyanide placed through a little-known online vendor. Phone records later painted a grim picture. Frantic messages exchanged between Am and otherwise unsuspecting creditors in the days leading up to each fatal event. Every death, as the detectives deduced, had been a carefully executed transaction. The meticulous nature of her plan was evidenced by the detective's whispered comment in a dim interrogation room. Each murder is a calculated transaction. A 15,000 USD loan here, an extra 3,000 in accessories there. It's as if she's maintaining an exact ledger of human life, he murmured, barely audible over the hum of the fluorescent lights. Meanwhile, Officer Woon's own involvement began to crack under the weight of accumulating evidence. His initial efforts to shield Am had been cunning and methodical, but cracks were starting to show. Late one night, as the clock ticked past midnight in their shared apartment, a routine search by incoming officers uncovered a sealed box of cyanide packets hidden away in a battered trunk. The officers pieced together incriminating text messages in which Am coordinated her orders with her supplier. It wasn't long before every shard of evidence pointed to the unstoppable truth. Am had orchestrated these deaths to cancel her debts, and Woon had done his best to cover up the trail. On an oppressively humid evening in late August 2023, a convoy of plainclothes officers and forensic experts converged on Am's modest home. The tension was almost palpable in the thick heat of the night as they silently surrounded the building. Woon was apprehended separately, visibly shaking, his face etched with a mix of dread and disbelief, as if the enormity of their actions had finally caught up with him. When the door to Am's living room was flung open by the raid, she was found seated serenely on her couch, as though waiting for justice to arrive. A calm, almost eerie composure in stark contrast to the chaos unfolding outside. Inside, in a room lit by a single, sputtering lamp, an officer's authoritative voice sliced through the oppressive silence. "Am, step away from that phone and put your hands up now. Every single piece of evidence is right here," he declared, his tone as unyielding as the pounding of the rain against the window panes. His words ricocheted off the bare walls, the sound amplified by the high tension that filled the space. Unperturbed, Am offered a slight, disconcertingly serene smile. In a voice that was cool, measured, and disturbingly detached, almost as if she were discussing everyday business transactions, she replied, "So, you believe you've uncovered every detail? Every loss incurred by a friend and each disappearing dollar, it all adds up like a simple ledger, balanced down to the last cent." Her tone was so casual it belied the gravity of the moment, and it sent shivers down the spines of those present. Nearby, a detective who had spent countless hours building the case fixed his unyielding gaze upon her. With a face carved in grim determination, he responded in a low, even tone, "That so-called ledger isn't merely about numbers. It's the record of 14 lives extinguished and debts erased amounting to over $200,000. Based on our findings, you're now facing charges for multiple homicides and fraud." His words were deliberate, each one landing like a final nail in a well-sealed coffin. In the charged aftermath of that confrontation, every exchanged word reverberated with the weight of irreversible choices. The arrest, conducted with a mix of hardened resolve and silent sorrow from those who witnessed it, marked the end of one dark chapter and the beginning of the relentless march toward accountability. As the legal proceedings unfolded, the courtroom transformed into a grim stage for one of the most macabre trials in recent memory. Public outrage blazed in every headline, while the trial itself became a polarized spectacle of pain and accountability. Family members of the victims, their voices shaking with profound sorrow and anger, took the stand one by one. They recounted memories of loved ones lost, of financial ruin, and the betrayal of trust that had led to these untimely deaths. Their testimonies painted a picture of a woman whose greed and addiction had cost the lives of those who believed in her. During one heated cross-examination, a young, grieving daughter, barely able to compose herself, struggled to understand how the loss of someone so dear could be reduced to nothing more than a financial calculation. Her trembling voice filled the courtroom as she asked, "How can anyone treat the loss of someone they cared for as if it were just a matter of balancing a ledger?" In response, Am maintained her unnervingly calm composure. With a measured cadence that was disturbingly devoid of genuine remorse, she replied that by removing those who owed her money, she had effectively balanced the books, as if it were a simple commercial transaction rather than the irreversible act of ending a life. Public opinion swung violently against her as the trial progressed. Every detail of her calculated and premeditated actions was brought to light. The evidence, a veritable mosaic of digital records, forensic reports, and damning testimonies, formed an image so horrifying that even the most stoic observers found themselves horrified. In a final, resolute moment, the judge, his face etched with the severity of his charge, delivered his verdict in an unrelenting tone. Given the premeditated nature of these crimes, the deliberate extraction of financial gain at the cost of human life, and your utter disregard for the value of life itself, I hereby sentence you to death." The sentence sent shockwaves through every corner of society. Meanwhile, Officer Woon, whose own complicity and failure to intervene had been laid bare, received a dramatically lighter sentence of 1 year and 4 months for his role in tampering with evidence. The decision, widely criticized, only deepened the public's sense of betrayal and outrage. News channels across the nation broadcast details of Am's murderous spree, and the headlines painted a picture of a once ordinary woman who had twisted her gambling obsession into a calculated series of homicides. Each murder, carefully engineered to cancel a debt and acquire valuable possessions, had culminated in a dark ledger tallying over 200,000 USD in lost funds and unaccounted valuables. In a final, grim twist, it was revealed that 14 of those she had trusted were silenced forever, their lives reduced to numbers on a ledger maintained with chilling precision. Yet, even as the courtroom drama reached its climax, behind the heavy iron doors of a detention center, whispers of discontent and protest continued to circulate. Community vigils were held for the victims, and the names of the fallen were etched on memorials that served as solemn reminders of lives lost to unchecked greed and destructive addiction. Families, united in their grief, demanded not only justice but also a systemic reevaluation of how such tragedies could occur unchecked. In the final moments before her transfer to death row, Am sat in a stark, cold cell bathed in harsh fluorescent light. There was a perverse calm in her gazia, final resignation to fate that was as unnerving as it was inexplicable. Her dark ledger of crimes, meticulously compiled over years of secret transactions, now stood as an inescapable record of a path paved by sin and exploitation. The case of Amand, by extension, the involvement of Officer Woon would go down in history as a stark, cautionary tale. A man's unchecked gambling habit, and a woman's cold, calculated measure of debt, culminating in the disappearance of 14 lives. The legacy of these crimes, embodied in forensic reports and a painstaking accumulation of digital evidence, left an indelible mark on the community. It was a relentless reminder that the cost of addiction can never be measured solely in dollars. It is paid in the currency of human lives, trust shattered beyond repair. And so, as the final verdict was delivered, the lifeless pages of Am's ledger were sealed forever, a chilling testament to a period when greed and obsession converged to create a dark empire of murder. In its wake, a community mourned, and the long arm of justice ensured that the reckoning was as inexorable as the passing of time.